Shall we go? Micro. It's on. Okay. I'm going to try to talk very close to it. Good afternoon. My name is Benoit Marchant. I'm the CEO of a startup called Montage Studio. And what you're going to see today, we've been working on it for, by some measure, the past 8 years. Other measures, the past 4 years. But there's a huge amount of work that's actually been going in there. So let's start by a quiz. Do you guys know what that is? No. So let's start by the background. The background is Next Step. Everybody remember what Next Step was? So Next Step was the company and system that Steve Jobs created when he was ousted of Apple. That was the first Unix with a great user experience. And that application specifically is the one that Tim Berners-Lee wrote at the CERN to express his idea of what the web could be. So the name of that app is literally World Wide Web. That's what Tim Berners-Lee named it. And that's how he prototyped what the reason why we own that room today. And there's something very interesting he said about that. He said, I could do in a couple of months on the next what would take more like a year on other platforms. And that's incredibly profound. If Tim Berners-Lee had tried to invent the web on a Windows platform, on DOS or some other Unix, he probably would have gave up because he wouldn't have been able to work as quickly. He could have been tired of it, be distracted by other things, and we may not even be here to talk about what the web is. So that's about a factor of 6 times. And the reason why he was able to do that was because Next Step was a platform. It was a combination of a set of technologies, of frameworks, of existing code, plus a set of authoring tools on top of that. So Next Step was the ancestor of macOS 10 and now iOS, which benefited from these past 35 years of evolution of the exact same technology. Xcode is the descendant of something that was called Project Builder. Now Interface Builder is built in Xcode. It used to be a standalone application. But this ecosystem has been long in the making. Another one, obviously, is the one from Microsoft. It's not as long, and it's been changing a lot more, but it provides you the same service. It's a combination of frameworks and something on top that make you as a human more productive, and they also do something that you can't do by hand. There are a few things that you can't. And of course, there's another one platform that was pretty much of the same caliber. It was Flash. You had the runtime with all the objects, the classes you could manipulate with ActionScript. And then on top, there was Flash Builder, which allowed you to do a lot of things that, yes, you could probably do by code, but would take you so much more time. And you also enable interactive designers to do things in a way that they may not have been able to do by code. So a lot of saving, and it's all about empowering people to be creative with what they do. And if someone is creative but doesn't know to code, there's nothing wrong with that. We might as well get the most of his good ideas as he works, right? So this platform, why does it matter? Because if you look at building client-side applications today in a modern way, it actually doesn't matter what language you use. They all have the same architecture. They are all client-side heavy, whether they're in Java on Android or they're coding Objective-C on iOS. If it is a cloud-connected application, they're going to get data from the backend. They're not going to get HTML5 code as it was HTML4. Android doesn't want to use, I mean, you can use a web view if you want to, but the backends have transformed themselves into services. So if you look how to do the same thing in HTML5, that's a whole single-page application paradigm, and the same thing. You don't really get pre-rendered markup from the backend anymore. You get data. So the problem is similar, and the same way we've seen the community realize that MVC structure is important to structure an application like that. then there's some realization that data bindings are a good thing. They save you time. They are not essential. You can do everything without data bindings. But when you start using them and they work, it's kind of nice because you write a lot less code and you go faster. So all these to say that there are some great ideas and great patterns and paradigms that have been proven for the past 30, 40 years in these native environments that are worth looking at to evolve what we're doing. And it starts by raw technologies. And so my background is from Apple. And Nextstep, before I was a Nextstep developer for about 5 years. I worked at Apple for about 10 years. And ironically, I only did web development at Apple. And I was doing consumer-facing application. And I used my Nextstep background, so desktop, to bring things like drag and drop to the web back in 2000. And I realized that the web could do a lot more than people were using it for. And through my kind of like mixed background, I was able to help, and I wanted to go further to the point where I realized this is way too hard. It takes me too much time to do stuff on the web compared to I was doing the same thing in Cocoa. I would have gone 10, 20 times faster. Why? Because I didn't have what I had back then, a set of resources, a real platform on top of the raw HTML. So the idea was taking all that great engineering from different products all the way back from Nextstep to Web Objects, which was the first object-oriented application server in the world. That's what's behind the iTunes Store. That's what's behind the online store. Back in the days, in the late 90s, every big company were using it. Swiss Bank, Chrysler, Merrill Lynch, Disney. All these websites were actually built with WebObject. Great technology, dead, but great technology. And of course, cues from iOS and OS 10. So what we did, our insight was that, you know what? Let's look at the patterns here that actually help. Data bindings, you know. Obviously, we took that too. But WebObjects had an amazing design about components. They came out in 95, 96. I haven't seen a bare component designed anywhere. And that pattern sustained hundreds, if not millions of applications. Where you have real reusability of your components. The draw loop is something that comes from iOS. The idea is you don't draw on screen exactly what happens right now. So, for example, a touch move is very high frequency. If you update your screen every time there's a touch move, you're wasting time and batteries because your user is not going to see it. The touch move frequency is higher than 60 frames per second. Why should you do that? You shouldn't. On iOS, you don't. You just handle an event and you mark your view, say, need display. And then that happens into a draw loop later on. So we took all these ideas and basically put them over HTML5 to make a framework that's called Montage GS. So that's happened at Motorola. For 2 years, leaving Apple, bringing a bunch of engineers that worked on the first prototyping of that technology at Apple, including Mike who's here. We restarted at Motorola from scratch, using the lessons we learned, and we built Montage GS to exactly execute that vision with a focus on mobile, especially, which coming from Motorola would not be surprising. But that's just the start. So the first layer is HTML5. Then you got Montage GS, which is one of the class-leading framework among with Ember and Angular. We have some different opinions. There are some similarities as well. We use the Common JS module system, for example. So you can reuse code meant for Node.js ecosystem directly on the client side with Montage if you want to, if that makes sense. And it's BSD open source. It's on GitHub. It's been open source for 2 years. We've building applications, one big that you're going to see. We built 2 applications for Google. Actually, the first user experience you see when you boot a Chromebook the first time is actually a Montage GS application. It's called Tips and Tricks. So pretty solid. But really what we wanted to do, and that's what Montage Studio is about, is bring that layer on top to go beyond what a framework is and beyond the services that the framework provide and bring something more from an authoring standpoint in a cloud where you can work with other people, help how designers and developers work together and just work faster and do stuff that you'll see you can't do by hand. No human being should be asked to do what you're going to see by hand. It's not right. So let's look at the demo. So we have the ability for you to follow that demo directly on your device if you want to. It's a live experiment, so we probably haven't had that many devices at the same time. But go to that URL, and you should see hopefully something. And I'm going to switch in a minute to get out of the presentation. Give you a few more time. OK, so you see the last part of the URL? That's your preview access code. Okay. YPOOSVHR. The product is in beta, just a heads up. Everybody's there? Everybody who wants to be there is there? YP is the last part of the URL. The access code is the last part of the URL. I should have written that down. All right? That's right. Good. Okay, so the application we're gonna demo is a quick viewer of a WordPress site. So WordPress is adding to the core of WordPress a REST JSON API. So it's going to turn every WordPress installation in the world into a service. So we thought that was really cool. So we wanted to see what we could do with it. So the subject of that demo is just building a client-side montage application that's going to get data from that WordPress install. It's a blog post that Ryan set up. So what you see here is Montage Studio. So let's go a tour. So it's a cloud-based application running in Chrome. We've been focusing on that. We're working on adding like fixing bugs for other browsers. On the left side, you have the list of the files, starting with an interesting one, which is the package.json. So that file is the package.json from the CommonJS ecosystem that you would expect. So here you can see the basic information about your project, the author who that would be, the package dependencies. You can search in npm, for example, what else is on WordPress. We could see what else we may find. And he didn't like that. OK. Am I connected?
We have 65 people connected to the previewer right now. So,
all right.
that certainly
It could be that. So that's what that's basically a UI for managing the CommonJS packages. So you have assets folder where I have a few images, for example, and you have the node module folder, which is again the one you would find in a regular CommonJS app. And the one that's more specific to Montage is the UI folder. So every Montage application starts by an index HTML page, which is just a static HTML, and you can do whatever you want with it. That's where you see the logo, for example, the one that's spinning when you start. It's a regular page. You can do whatever you want. You just have one Montage script, and that's pretty much it. So let's go to the main. So the main component is the one that a Montage application is going to load by default. It's convention. You can override that. So you have the concept of the owner, which is the instance of a component that's going to load that template. It's exactly, for those who are familiar with iOS, it's the exact same pattern. In a nib, in a TFS builder, you have an owner, and that's just a placeholder for the object that's going to load all that. So here you have an object-oriented view of what Montage objects are being instantiated into that template. But the whole component is one folder. And the goal is to provide encapsulation. So in that folder, you're going to see the HTML file, a regular complete HTML file, and that's pretty cool. We'll see why. A JavaScript file, which is the JavaScript code of the component, and a completely valid CSS file. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. What object we have? So this is in the middle here. That's the DOM representation of the body. Exactly the same thing, just in a object view. You can see here we have a range controller that's going to manage the post. So we're going to get data, which I'm going to do in a minute. You're going to get data from the WordPress backend, and these JSON objects are going to be handled by the post controller, which is like an array controller in iOS. You have the header, which is going to be a banner on top of the post, and we have a flow component, which is a list on steroids. It's a list where you can place the items on a 3D basic curve in space. So we're going to show you how to do that. And inside the flow, we are going to repeat a card component. So the card component is a very simple one that has the title and the title of the post and the picture. So the first thing we're going to do is add the connection with WordPress. So I'm going to take that guy here and just drop it there. And that's instantiating the WordPress connector. So I need to configure that guy. And we have an inspector here when I'm going to ask the host. So it's going to be demo.fault.net. Demo, not lemo. There we go. And the path is going to be post. And the category is featured. Okay, so now that object is configured to talk to. It's going to do the REST communication, etc., talking to WordPress. So now we need to hook up the post to give that data to the post controller. So I'm going to create a binding. So we click that plus, you get a create a binding window, and I'm going to bind the content properties. Here there's autocomplete. To I'm going to grab the icon of that guy to the WordPress connector dot post. Okay, so now I'm going to launch my own preview. Actually, I have one myself. So those who logged in should have seen that with pretty much nothing on screen. Now we should see data coming in, hopefully. Take that in its own window. Make it smaller. Yeah, 77 connection. Who's seeing something? There we go. So here you see the flow, which is that component. And the idea, what we want to do here is when you click on one, we've made an animation in CSS, and then we should see the detail. The detail is missing, so we're gonna build that. Okay, so we're gonna build the post, and just to show you how the typical workflow would be, I'm going to create a component here, and I'm going to call it post. So that's going to create the folder, the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS, all the basics that you need to create that guy. So it's creating it, and it should get added to my UI. Yeah, it is definitely slower than it usually is. Yeah. All right. Command post. Yes, good point. I did not mention that. If you go there yourself, you're gonna be greeted by authenticate with GitHub. So Montage Studio sits directly on top of GitHub, which it uses as a cloud version file system, like so to speak. So you create projects in Montage Studio, they end up in GitHub. You already have project in GitHub, you go here, I mean Montage projects, you come here, and you're gonna see them in Montage Studio. We create a branch on the side for you to work in Montage Studio, and then you can take that branch and then include that into your project yourself if you want through a Git pull request. So it's not coming up. I should reload at that point. So I'm worried it's going to screw that. Okay. Yeah. Good idea. Okay, so that's saved, and reload. Everybody should be reconnecting automatically. So the live preview has, it's not actually a preview. It's the real application you're working on that's running on many devices and has multiple interesting aspects. The first one is interesting for you as a developer. If you're building a responsive application and you're starting to be able to reuse components at different places in your app, you may have some components using different set of data. So if you're working on one component used in one place of your app, you're making changes, and you're not checking what happens on the other side of your app where that other component is used, you may create regressions. So with Montage Studio, you can have two devices or two browser windows, it doesn't matter. Put your app in different states, in different navigation places where the occurrences where that component is used are different, and make your changes and see it happen at the same time as you make the changes. So that's the first use case. The other one is, let's say you're building something that's, well, HTML5 is by nature cross-platform. So you may want to have an iPad or a phone, an iOS and another Android device which have different aspect ratio, different characteristics, and check them. I can't speed them. Again, and see how the changes you do on one version compared to the other environment. And the other one that's awesome is that if you're working with other people, they could be your team members or they could be your customers. They could be somewhere else in the country or somewhere else on the planet. As long as they are connected to the cloud, they are going to see in real time what you do. So here you just see a preview where once it's loaded again, you're going to see the changes I'm going to make in Montage Studio being reflected in real time on the app, because it's a real app that's actually working. You can change your score on yours and have a different view than mine. Okay, so it's reloaded, it's reconnecting the preview, so your preview should be reconnecting as well. So I have my post now. So you can see it's pretty empty. So because it is an absolute normal folder with real HTML, I have a post that our web designers did for me. So I opened that. So actually I can show you here in the tab. So this is the local rendering of that post HTML file. This is here. So this is the same file open in TextMate. So you got a folder post, there's the CSS, there's the HTML, which is exactly what you see here, right? So it's a page that shows the picture of the post, the title, and the description. So what I want to do is take that HTML page and turn that into a component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in Montage Studio, and I'm going to open the HTML file here. I'm going to go to TextMate. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to take all the inside of the div, goes there, paste, and I saw there is like more links for a font here, so I'm going to grab that, otherwise it's going to kill me, and add that there. Okay, so at that point, I need to bring the CSS as well. So the CSS is pretty much empty. I'm going to grab that whole thing and and drop it there. So now I have a post that has markup that was done by someone else that has no idea of what Montage is or what Montage does. It's a regular web page, okay? So now if I go to the object view of that, now I have the markup here. I can start working, me, the developer. So there's an image, a heading, and a content. So the image is going to need an image component. So we have one right here. So by drag and drop, I'm going to assign that image here. Now I need a heading, so that's a text. So I'm going to take the text and assigning to the heading. And the content is actually HTML returned by WordPress in the JSON format. So I need a HTML component, which is basically doing an inner HTML, working with the draw loop. I'm going to take the HTML and bring it into the content. There we go. So now I have these three things. They don't do anything, but if I add a few bindings, they will. So let's start by the image. So the image has an src. We try to stick to what you know. So the image component has the same properties as the image tags that it's mapping to. And that guy is going to, sorry, is going to be mapped to the owner. I'm going to grab the owner here. Oh, yes, you know what? We let you build metadata. So being JavaScript, being very dynamic, we don't know much about what your objects are going to be. So I can create a post property here. And post property, and I'm going to say it's an object. There we go. So now, when I go and do my binding again, so src, and I want the owner here, and dot, you're going to see the post, autocomplete. So I can select that. And then the property on the post, which is the JSON object that's going to come from the WordPress connector, is featured underscore image. I know that because I know the data sets. You would need to know yours as well. Dot source. Okay. And that's one way, then you've got two ways. So now we need to bind the content, which is going to be fairly similar. I can reuse, so that the value, I can reuse the owner, dot post, and dot, I think it's the title. No, that's the content, so the content is content. And define that binding, and same here. So that's a value as well. And that's the owner, dot post, dot title. Okay, you can set the binding one way or two ways. I mean, it's as usual. In that case, I don't need two ways, so it's more if it actually is more performant to go one way if you don't need two ways, so it's better to do that. So now I have a post component that I'm ready to use, and what you see, what's great is that it appears here. So on the right side, you have the first packet, the first module is the one of the current module you're working on, so your app, right? Any component you build here becomes instantly available to be reused somewhere else in your app. So I'm going to do just that. Here you have the component, the objects coming from the Montage module, and here you have the one from the Digit, which is a touch-oriented widget set from us, and then you get the WordPress module at the bottom. So now I should be able to go to the main and add a post. So okay, all right. Yes, let's save, go. And I'm going to go to main, and I'm going to create a post. So I'm going to go here. And what is it? And associated with it was already in the markup, so I'm going to associate it with here. And I need to configure that post. So that post is, we want that post to show the current selection in the flow, right? So the selection is something done by the range, by the post controller. So I want to bind the post property. The post object property is going to be bound to the range controller, the post controller dot selection dot 0. Boom. So now, if I go here, normally, Nope, it's not showing up. What did I miss? That's right. All right, so the post is hidden by default. So we need to add, so that's you're gonna see some woofu here. So the bindings in Montage are functional and reactive. So we went beyond the ability to wire a pass of an object to a pass of properties of another one, to the ability to have an expression in between. So what I can do here is say, you know what? The class list of the post is going to have, and that thing is featured, yeah, lowercase, right? Post, okay, yeah, reveal, lowercase, yeah, reveal. So here I'm saying that on the left side, I want my class list data structure to have the post dash reveal class name in my class list when the range controller, the post controller, sorry, here, oops, has a selection. So that's 0. Boom. You see the post happening? So now you got the app where you can select and then the post come in. You can scroll, pick one, and the post come in as you would expect. Is that too easy? Any question? No? All right. So now let's look at the flow component. So the flow component has its own editor. And you go through there. It actually has, well, before I do that, let me back out. The flow has a property called, oh, it's already elastic. Okay. Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the flow editor. So the flow editor is where you're going to be able to work with the curve. So I'm going to back out a little bit. So this is allowing you to decide how the components you repeat are going to be placed in a 3D dimensional space. So at the top here, you see the camera, you see the basic curve from the top with the camera in front. So this is a camera. So if I start moving that around, you're going to see the angle of what you see changing. And you see this is, this is a real-time running app, and I'm changing what you see as a user as the app is running. And if you have the device, or if you're connecting through your computer, you should see change too. Do you? Who sees it and who doesn't? All right, good. So you can go on and also make changes in terms of the curve. So you can decide, for example, at each node of that guy, you can bring an inspector and you can change transforms. So you can say, I want, for example, let's say I want to rotate them a bit as they fade out. Okay. So as you scroll, they pivot. They could even go to be completely like that. Right. You could also, that's a bit too much. You could also fade them out. So if I move that camera back, sorry, if I move that camera back further, you could say, you know what, the one in the back, I'm going to add some opacity. So they're going to fade out as they go in the back. Right. So as you scroll, they kind of fade in the back. I can put them further in the back as well if I wanted to. Right. I mean, you get the idea. very, very flexible. The changing I'm making here, and of course I can undo and get back to basics. The changes I'm doing here have nothing to do with the flow itself. It's Montage Studio. You take any montage component and you change their properties, you're going to benefit from that. So if you start making your own components and building app for yourself with your own library of things that you can reuse, you can publish them on NPM if you want to, or just have them local. You can have the same benefits. You're going to be able to have the same authoring benefits on that thing. All right. So I think that's it for this one. I'm going to switch to the other one. So I'm going to log out here, go back to the main screen where you see I have other projects. And there's another one that we have. Another thing that we do with Montage Studio is 3D. So I'm going to load a fairly simple example and we are not trying to replace how 3D is being created. We're trying to embrace how people are already doing that. So if you're familiar with working with a 3D artist, they have a workflow. They use 3ds Max or Maya or Unity or whatever their authoring tool of choice is, right? So once you've got an asset built in this software, you can export it into a format called Collada that is an XML interchange format between 3D authoring environments. So what we can do is take the Collada file and turn it into a GLTF file, which is an upcoming specification that we actually been driving at Kronos. And the idea is to make the Collada turn XML into JSON so it's more compact, make it more compressed so it gets delivered on your mobile devices faster, and also, which is even more important, pre-align the data of the Collada file to match what WebGL expect. Because if you do that every time you load your app, it's just a waste of time and battery. So in that example, we're going to build a quick view with a space fighter. So I'm going to create first, bring a scene here. I'm going to bring a scene view. There we go. I'm going to make the scene view 800 by 800. I'm going to go to the scene, and then I'm going to grab, in the asset, we have one model, which is Space Fighter. So I'm going to add that there. And I need to assign the scene to scene view. There we go. So now, if I do my preview, I don't need that anymore. So it is there. Yeah. I mean, oh. Yeah, it's kind of tight, but again. Okay, so we have that guy here. So it's the model that we just loaded and we just rendered, right? So that's nothing fancy so far. So what we can do though, and we have an editor in the tool, so you can select the scene, and there's a special editor where we can go and have a little bit more information about. You can see the scene itself by itself, but you also have information about what's in there. So what we're going to do is you're going to see there are some materials here. So I'm going to take that first material and import it into Montage Studio. So I'm turning that into an object that I can actually use. So now there's a material, and I can do something with it. So I'm going to add a slider right above the scene view. So here, right? You can see it. It doesn't do anything. So I'm going to bind the material has an opacity property. So I'm going to bind the opacity property to the slider dot value divided by 100. So now I can with my slider tweak the opacity of the 3D object just through the material. And it turned out, like, what the hell is that cockpit is actually a different material. So that's the other one we saw. So we can go back to the scene editor and realize that, yes, there was a second material. Yeah, that's right. That was here, and grab that. It's going to be called material 2. And now I can do something with it. So I can do the exact same thing. I can take that binding, actually, and drag it over and recreate the exact same thing. So now when I'm doing that, the whole thing is actually transparent. And the goal, and I don't see if you think we have an example, 3D example, which is called the den. How much time do we have left? 10 minutes. We have an example. Let me show you the example. So if you go to Montage Studio Gallery, we have an example called the Eco Homes, which is a bit more evolved. But the idea with 3D here is offering something that is needed but doesn't exist yet. Is the notion of you have a component approach to the whole web. So in Montage, the 3D components are behaving the same way, whether they happen to be rendering themselves on a DOM node or whether they're rendering themselves on a 3D node into a 3D scene graph that's managed by Montage. They're going to handle events the exact same way. You can do data bindings with them the exact same way. By the way, in Montage, the data bindings are absolutely not related to the UI layer. We use data bindings inside our own business logic. Because you should. Bindings are not a UI-rated specific technology. Yes, they are mostly used frequently there, but they're not. I mean, in iOS they're not either. So that example show you how you can build something that's responsive. So that's like you have a lot of room. You could do that. Now, if you go to watch the menu, now it's more like a tablet format, and the menu is gone. It is optional. You have to click it. Right? And if you go to a phone format, the example will change. And by the way, this is a flow. This is the exact same component that was used in the WordPress demo, just used from a user interface. Role more than the data, a data showing role. And you can go in an app. So we use, for example, we have thermostat here. There's a texture on the floor of that apartment, and if you turn it on and off, we can change the carpet color. Then that's fancy. It's carpet 2.0. You can add solar panel, and the eco score grows up. That's all done through bindings in that example. It doesn't have to, but we actually end up using it for that. The countertop, you can change the material the same way we did the opacity in the example. We can switch complete material on that, and you can see it. I don't know if you can see, but it's real because you can see the reflection of the lamp. It's a real 3D model. It's not a video, right? You couldn't do that with a video. And you can hide and show. So it's a very interesting, and if you need a custom browser, hopefully until June, to see that on iOS, but you run straight on Chrome, on recent version of Chrome on Android, out of the box, and it is as smooth and efficient as it is here. Yeah, you can add. This is the European design. That's why there's a washer dryer in the kitchen. Just so you know. And you can change the coating of that, which is again applying some level of opacity to the material. So if we go back to the gallery, there's another example that we've done with 3D, which is fun. It's called the Beach Planet. And the Beach Planet is a mini game, so to speak. And what we're trying to do here is it's annoying. I'm going to just do a little bit and then I will shut it down. So it's loading the model right there. Command model. There should be a big planet here. Actually, half of a planet, technically. Not sure why it's not showing up. Bandwidth. No. There you go. There you go. So what's interesting here is that as you explore the planet, you're trying to find these logos. The way that Stone is translating up is by actually writing CSS. So on Click we had a class name, and the Montage 3D components allows a web designer to use the CSS translate to translate the nodes of the 3D components up in the air. So you don't have to know WebGL. You can do on the 3D node what you instinctively would do now on the document. Of course, it doesn't apply to everything. You're not going to do flexbox in WebGL. But colors, opacity, translate, stuff like that, they make a lot of sense. And that's lowering the bar of the technology so that more people and people of different backgrounds can actually go and use all that. So the door is the same thing. It's a CSS rotate that's applied to the actual 3D object. And this one is a CSS hover. I move that out. I'm not clicking anything, and when I hover, he actually grows. And this is a WebGL. It's real 3D. Right? There's no cheating. There you go. There we go. All right. So let's get back to the slide. So now, I invite you to go and try it yourself. So the tool is in beta. We started beta about a month ago, and it's free. You just have to register, and then you'll receive an email that gives you the URL to go to. And it's going to work that way. It's going to be free for doing open source. So we are directly connected to GitHub, so we know whether the project you're working on are open repo or they are closed repo. We know that. So if it's open, you can go and use it as much as you want to do hopefully to learn and do great stuff. And everybody will benefit. You'll be able to do great stuff. Everybody will be able to see it. People will know we exist. Great. And if you like it and you want to do it for commercial reason, like GitHub, will ask you to pay a subscription to be able to use it for real stuff. So that's where we've been up to. And the final words, yes, HTML5 is not a buzzword. And we think that with what we're bringing here to the table, it's profiling to be, we think the only platform that's actually going to be relevant in a very short future as of now. You can start and you can have the frictionless adoption of web applications. It's a URL. An app is a URL. You can go, give that to someone, link to it. It's the efficiency of the web that I think we all love. And you don't have to give up the kind of experience, user experience that drive user engagement, which is the primary reason why people think they have to go to native. So unless you need some extremely aggressive hookup with the native platforms in terms of APIs that are not exposed to HTML5 in an efficient way, you need a bridge, or you're writing a AAA game, you should be doing a native app. there's no question. I'm not going to say the contrary. It would be stupid. But there's so many applications that can completely be done in web today with no hesitation. And we're here to help do that.
All right.
Thank you.